Well, hello, welcome to Rosie's Preserving School. And today we're mostly going to be talking about apples and a bit about tomatoes. But we're going to be making my spiced apple chutney, which is my go-to recipe for a chutney that doesn't offend anybody, you know, children, granny, whatever. It's spiced apple, but it's not spicy. Hasn't had a chili waved over it or anything like that. And I think it's just nice sometimes to have a milder, sweeter chutney that, as I say, doesn't offend anybody. And then you can make sandwiches and put it in the children's packed lunches and things, and it's not going to, you know, be any horrible shocks. So I'm going to get cooking the chutney first, and then all the masses of stuff on the table will get referred to whilst it's cooking. Otherwise we won't have time to actually get through the chutney making. So first of all, when I'm devising chutney recipes, when I'm making chutney recipes, if they're other people's, you really need to start putting the vinegar in the pan, then adding the ingredients in. You cook the hardest ingredients first, so that they have time to soften, and you put the sugar in towards the end of the ingredients, because then it makes it much more liquid. And also when you add the sugar to a recipe, it kind of halts the softening process, so things that haven't cooked down properly will tend to stay a bit lumpy and sometimes a bit hard, which isn't great, really. So the first thing I'm going to do is put some vinegar in. Now the recipe is, I'll have to read it all, 900 mils or 30 fluid ounces. Now you can measure that into a jug, but you might not need it all. I would put in at the beginning about 2/3. And once you put the sugar in, if you decide that it's a bit thick, you can add the rest of the vinegar, but you might not need it. So, I lift this massive bottle of vinegar, and I'm going to need 900 mils, so just under the litre. I'm using cider vinegar because it's an apple recipe. Makes sense, but if you've only got malt, I say only, if you've got malt vinegar or distilled vinegar or wine vinegar, you can use that. It's not a problem. So I'm going to pour about 2/3 of the vinegar in. The next, and I'm going to turn the heat on as well. The hardest ingredients are the onions, and the recipe says 4 onions. So I've got 1 massive onion and 3 smaller ones. So that's what I'm using. And I'm going to cut those up. All right. Oh, getting peeled. I'll do my big one first. I don't like cutting up big onions because my hands aren't very big and it all gets very slippery. But nevertheless, needs must. Take all the peel off. Oh, there's always another layer. Right, there we go. So you need to cut it the size you want it to end up. I mean, it will soften, but it won't really get any smaller. So you don't really want huge, great chunks of onion. We're not going to process it in any way. It's going to cook down. So try and keep the sizes fairly even. And then the end bits are always a bit more difficult. There's a bit of stalky bit in there I'll take out. Don't want that in. And another bit. That's it. push it over there and do the other half. Yep. Those bits can go in. The quicker you try to do something, the worse it gets. Anybody's eyes running yet? Why not? Ooh, take that bit off. I hate it when they get slippery and you can't keep hold of them. Right, skins in the bin. Right, last one, and then there's the garlic, which you can also do if you're waiting for me to finish and you've done your onions. Go on and do the garlic. It just needs to be chopped like I normally do. You don't need to sort of squish it, and unless that's how you prefer it to be, because that does cook down quite well. Those of you who are not cooking, if you haven't got notebooks with you, I suggest you you find one, because there's quite a lot of information tonight on various things, so you might find it's beneficial. I'm putting 3 cloves of garlic in because they actually were quite small when I looked at them. So that last one. Right. I'm just going to wipe my mat because I want to do the apples on it, and I don't want them smelling of onions and garlic too much. Right, going on to the apples. I've got, as I say, my lovely cooking apples here, and I'm going to give you a couple of ideas of what to do with the peel and the core, because it's a shame to throw it away. Oh, some questions here, sorry. Any tips to stop the grey? Only years and years and years of having to chop onions, Rachel, you eventually get used to it. Yes, it's eating dry bread, and somebody said right, now this is my sort of standard way of cutting up apples because I find it easier. I just cut them in half, cut round the core, and then the core usually ends up in the very last piece, and you can just cut it out quite easily. If you prefer to use peelers and things, please do so. I just find them, I just end up peeling my fingers. I don't know why, I've never really got on with them very well. So then if there's a little bit of core left on it, just go down, and then you can run the knife down the peel and take it off quite cleanly and cut out any bits that you don't want in there. Then just chop across. You don't need to do it too small because it will cook down. These are cooking apples and they will cook down readily. So there's no need to do any more work than you absolutely have to. I'll cut that one a bit wider, so I need to go across twice. That. They can go into the pan. Now, if you like to make the hard to set jams, the ones that have got low pectin, like blackberries and cherries and blueberries and things like that, instead of buying powdered pectin or the pectin, the commercial pectin in a bottle, which has a bit of an aftertaste, I've found, you can make your own. Now, just the way that we cook apples and blackberries together, so that the blackberries get the benefit of the pectin in the apples, you can make the pectin and use it, add it to a recipe as a liquid, so that you don't have to cook the fruit with apples, because sometimes, like with strawberries, you don't necessarily want an apple texture in the jam. So you keep your peel and your cores, they can all go in, and you put them in a pan, and I'll give you a ratio, but pretty much you put the peel in the pan and just cover it with cold water. Just a moment. How much should we worry about the brown bits of apple? Just cut it out, Rachel. I mean, I don't worry about it, but I mean, if you've let the bit go in, but it's better to take it out. And if you're keeping the peel to make pectin, then don't put those bits in. So I'll give you a ratio though, which is 2 kilos or 4 pounds of apple scraps, so the peel and the core, to 4 litres or 8 pints of water. Now that's quite a lot of water. You might want to, you know, just halve the ratio there. And we'll put that up on the sidebar in a bit, and that will so you can note it down. The ones that are cooking can get it from there. I'll give it to Trev when I've finished. I've got 2 ideas, so I'll do both and then he can put them up. But you can, if you don't want to sort of stop and do that, which most people wouldn't if they're making chutney, you don't want another full-on job to do, just put them in a bag in the freezer, and then when you feel like doing it, you can. So you boil them together, sort of simmer them, you know, bring it up to the boil and then simmer them for about 45 minutes to an hour until they're all nice and soft and reduced and everything. And then you put it in a jelly bag and drip it overnight like you would if you were making a jelly. And the next day, return it to the pan and cook it down until it's about half the quantity that it was when you started. You can measure it in a jug before you put it into the pan if you want to, but most of this can be done by eye. You know, it's not, you don't have to be too exact. I'm just turning my pan down a bit because it's up to heat and it'll all get a bit too hot if I don't. So when you've cooked it down to about half, you can then just bottle it like you would a cordial. Just put it into bottles. You can water bath it if you feel it needs it. If it's not sort of super hot when you seal it. If it is, you'll probably be all right just sealing it. I've got some here that I made a while ago. That's what it will end up like, something sort of dense and thick like that. And then you can add it to your jams, that your jam mix, and you need about 1/3 of the quantity of the jam, of the fruit that you're putting in. So you need about 1/3 of that you need in volume of the pectin. So you can do it all by weight, and it should help to set the jams without, it won't have any flavour, it won't change the flavours at all, which is what's nice. I do use the powder pectin sometimes. The only way to use it really is to mix it with the sugar. If you try and add it in any other way, it will just clump together in a lump and it will be hopeless. So getting through the apples here. Now the other idea is you can make your own apple vinegar just from the peel and core as the same, which I've got here. Don't need to cook it. Oh, again, I'll give you the quantities you will need. You'll need a kilo of the peel and cores, which is about 2 pounds. And you can, if you've got one that's sort of a bit bruised, as long as it's not gone mouldy, you can put that in. And then you'll need 1 litre, 2 pints of warm water. Now I've got one of these big containers here, which we don't use for anything else. So I'm going to use it for my vinegar. Well, yeah, I'll put it down there for a minute. And what you need is a large jar that has got an open top, a wide open top, because you need to leave it open for the air to get in. So I'm going to put my peel in as I go. I'm going to judge it. I'm not going to weigh it. Such a rebel. I reckon if I've got 2 kilos of apples, I'm going to have near enough a kilo of peel. And do you know, at the when you go to sort of car boots and things like that, you see those stoneware pots that are tall, and then they come up and then they've got a lip, but the top is open. And most people buy them and put their wooden spoons in and things in the kitchen, don't they? But but they are actually vinegar jars, because every household used to make their own vinegar in just this way. But I've got this glass one that we've, as I say, we've had it for years. We've used it once. And so I thought, well, I'll repurpose it. I have got proper vinegar jars in my little shop, but I want to sell those, so I'm going to use this, and then you'll be able to see what's going on. Remember to put the right thing in the right pan now. That's my usual trick. I'll end up putting the peel in chutney and the apple in the vinegar. Anyway, so what we're going to do is add some warm water and 125 grams, about 4 ounces of sugar. You can use brown, I'm going to use demerara sugar because it will give it a nice colour, or you can use honey if you've got, you know, a source of honey that isn't breaking the bank. A lot of people know beekeepers these days, it's quite the thing. And you can put honey in. And then you just leave it for a week to sort of ferment in a way. You give it a stir or a shake every day for a week. And then you take out the peel, strain it out, put the vinegar back into the jar and leave it to create, it will create a mild alcohol to start with, because all vinegar is made from alcohol. And then it will gradually turn into vinegar. And we can have a look at it when it's done that. It will probably form something which is the vinegar mother, which is what makes the juice and the water into alcohol and then vinegar. I think the fermenting people also call it a SCOBY, and it looks a bit like a sort of jellyfish really floating around, and it's something that people I know have thrown away because they think it's gone off, but that's the actual important bit, and that's what you need to keep hold of. And you can transfer that each time and make more and more vinegar from your scraps. When you use it, you can use it for salad dressings and things like that, non-preserving uses, even the cleaning if you wanted to make the lemon vinegar. But if you want to use it for preserving, you will need to check that it is 5% acetic acid, and for that you'll need a pH tester, a little kit that you can test it with, which are easy to buy online, either paper strips or you know, a sort of meter. So if you want to use it seriously for preserving, then you need to get one of those. So nearly finished our apples. So I've made vinegar in the past, but I've made it from bottles of red wine, which sounds very extravagant, but I've not ever made the vinegar from scratch from peel, so I'd be interested. I'll be doing it along with you if you decide to do it. I know lots of people that do it, and sometimes you make these things accidentally, but I thought I've got so much peel this year. Probably what I'll do is end up adding another quantity to this one when I've got some more peel tomorrow. Whoops, maybe in the wrong pan. How are you doing, Rachel? You finished your apples, or you? Oh gosh, speedy peeler. Right, put this in the jar. And of course, when I've strained out the peel after a week, I'm going to give it to the chickens because they like cider vinegar, and it will taste a bit like that to them. So, and it's very good for them. Probably slightly too many there for 2 chickens, but they can go in the compost. Right, last apple. Not too bad. I do love it though when you can sort of get 2 or 3 things from one operation. So we've got the chutney on the go. We could use half the peel to make pectin and the other half to make vinegar, and that's a win-win-win as far as I'm concerned. Oh, I see, you're doing half quantities. Yeah, they've been one of the old ones, the brown ones, Rachel. Yeah, that's exactly it. You can see what Rachel's holding up. I've got some at work, but I stupidly didn't bring them back here. But you'll see why it's got the top shape like that in a minute. And I love it to think we've all bought those thinking, oh, that's lovely. Oh, I'll put my spoons in it. And then we find it's actually got a real use, you know. It's not just some random person that's decided to make pots shaped like that. Right, in we go. Actually, I'm glad I've got such a big pot because it's taking quite a lot of room. That goes in there, that's it. I'm going to get it in the wrong one if I'm not careful. That goes in there. Give it a stir. Now the first lot of apple and the onions have cooked down nicely. So, going on with the vinegar, I'm going to go and get some water because I need a litre of warm water. Won't be a second. And I also need my 4 ounces, 125 grams of sugar. So there's my demerara sugar going in. And the water. I might put a bit more in actually because that's not covering the top. Right, there we go. Then you need to cover the top. You need the air to get in. So I don't want to close this down and clip it down. It's going to hang down the back there. And I've got a jelly bag that's got quite wide mesh actually. It's quite old. It's, you know, it's a bit like your old underwear. It goes a bit grey after a while. You put it over the top. If you've got muslin, if you haven't got either, then use some kitchen paper, you know, kitchen roll or something, or even a clean J cloth would do it. This is the tricky bit, getting the rubber band on. So I don't lose it. Once it's there, I can sort of fiddle about with that. So that goes on. You need the air, you need the natural yeast in the air to get in and start the process. So I'm going to put it over on the corner of my dresser. I'll leave it there and I'll give it a stir or a shake each day. Looks rather pretty actually. Right, now then, getting back to our chutney. There we are. I'm going to put some of the spices in, which are a tablespoonful of mustard seed. Where have they gone? I had hidden them. I know I got them out. Oh no, I didn't get them out. I couldn't reach them in the cupboard. If you can get them, please. Then I need 450 grams of raisins. Yeah, those, please. Yeah, I'll have the jar. No, just the other ones. These are actually sultanas because I think I'm out of raisins, but either will do. Tip those. These are lovely, big, juicy sultanas anyway. 450 grams of them. Right. That's a mustard seed, is a tablespoonful. They're going in, yellow mustard seed. They won't give a lot of flavour, but they give texture. What can be quite a smooth sort of chutney. So that's that. My ginger, which is also a tablespoonful. Ground ginger. You could chop up some fresh ginger root if you've got it. That. And we need some salt, which is 2 teaspoonfuls. Sea salt. That is a tablespoon, so I use my teaspoon. Nice sea salt, crunchy, flaky, crumbly. Give those a stir. Raisins, sultanas, so they can be getting nice and plump. I think I'm going to put the rest of my vinegar in because you can see there's not a great deal. Well, actually, I'll put the sugar in first. That's the way to do it, and then I'll be able to see what the state of play is. Let's clear the decks a bit. Make sure we've got everything else in. Garlic clove, vinegar, sea salt, lemon juice. That's the other thing to go. Is my lemon, lovely big lemon. Squeeze that. Just need the juice. That's half. All helps with the keeping qualities. The sugar, the vinegar, the salt, the lemon juice, they all play their part to make sure that the chutney stays in good condition. So there we are. Let's move those. Need another stir. Just give that apple a couple of seconds to soften before I put the sugar in, otherwise it will just stay like that, which isn't going to be great. I know it's just for us, but even so. So your apple should be sort of uniformly soft, really. I'm going to put the lemon into the lemon jar, because that's another one full up. I must have a vinegar day. Sort them out. That's it. Right, that can go out of the way. So I've got my sugar here, which is a muscovado sugar, which is a very dark brown sugar. Lovely and toasty flavour. Well, it really makes this chutney. If you've got a lighter brown sugar, then that's fine. It's still a good flavour. You know, they all work together. I think I've got two different sorts here. You see, I've got a bit of a lighter one underneath because I had two open bags. But they're both muscovado sugars, but they're just a bit different. But you could use demerara, but it won't have the same sort of rich flavour that this has got. I know it looks a lot of sugar, but it does mean I mean, it's a big mix, so you need a lot of sugar. Okay, I want to recap a bit on last week when we made the coffee mixture, and you remember I couldn't find my glycerin. I found it eventually at work, so I have put it into the bottle of coffee mixture that we made. But this is what the glycerin is, just a clear liquid, and this is a vegetarian one, a vegetable glycerin. Now if you look at the name on there, that's the name of the people I couldn't remember, where I get all my shea butter and the other oils, the essential oils and the coconut oil from. It's called Naissance, and it's online, and they're absolutely brilliant. They've got just about everything as far as I can tell. So that puts that one to bed. Put that over there. So while that's cooking, let's have a look at some of the other things we can be doing and the things that I've been doing this week. Oh, yeah, vinegar making my nose run as usual. As I go through them, I'm going to get Trev to remove them or have a bit of removal, because obviously we're getting a bit crowded on the table. So sticking with apples, we've got a lovely eating apple tree at the front of the garden, which has been prolific this year, and they're absolutely beautiful apples. But you obviously, if you haven't got a tree or you don't know anyone with a tree, you can buy some apples at the market. It doesn't matter. You can use any eating apple that you like. And this, I'm making apple rings, dried apple rings. You can either, if you've got a dehydrator, do that. You can put them into a very, very, very low oven on trays, on cooling racks, you know, wire mesh tray if you've got it. Or you can, people do thread them onto sticks and hang them up to dry if you've got a nice warm place to hang them. So that's the apple rings. As I do them, I peel the apples, because otherwise when they dry they're quite sharp around the edges. So I peel them, I core them, and I pop them into what's called acidulated water, and that just means it's water with lemon juice in it to stop them going brown before I can get to put them into the dehydrator. Then during the winter, we'll be eating these. We will be eating them instead of biscuits and things. We'll have them on our desks and we can nibble away, and they're nice and sort of, they're not hard and dry. They're sort of rubbery and squishy, but they'll keep for years like that. So they're a great thing to make. Great if you've got young children around, either your own children or nieces or nephews or grandchildren. They're fantastic. They love them. The peel and I throw away the cores in this instance. It's going on the compost, but the peel, I keep the ends, take the stalks out and cut the the bit at the other end, you know, the sort of spiky bit. And then I dry those as well when I'm drying the rings, because I found I was getting a huge amount of apple waste. So I dry them, and they're not very nice to eat like that. But I then blitz them in the spice mill and make a powder from them, which I've mixed with a little bit of mixed spice, only a little bit, and some demerara sugar. Then that goes into a clip top jar, and Trev has it on his porridge during the winter, or his muesli, whichever he's having. So, and it makes a delicious topping. I mean, you could put it on the top of, you know, a plain cake if you were, when you were baking it, that kind of thing as a topping. But that's how we use it. Yeah, here's our, oh, it's a bit high, I think. Here, I'll just turn that down again. Stir, wait for those other bits to soften. So that's our apple powder. So tomatoes, as I said, you know, I've got hundreds and hundreds of tomatoes, all at various states. I've got some still on the vines in the greenhouse. Some of the plants were outside and needed rescuing. So I've got all the green tomatoes. I'm now down to 3 trays of them. I put them on egg trays because they tend to, it keeps them fairly separate and they don't get so sort of moldy. When they're all together, they tend to sort of set each other's off. But all together, they will ripen each other. If you've got some red ones, then they will help the others to ripen. And each sort of 3 or 4 days, I check the trays and then I take out the ripe ones. These are ripe. These are supposed to be this sort of colouring, so don't think they've gone mad. And I'll put them in a dish, and when I've got enough, I will then make the passata. And if you look on Instagram, I've actually got the process that I did. You thought the big ones were apples. Yeah, I forget what their name is for the moment, but I made the passata yesterday. So I cooked all the tomatoes with olive oil, sea salt, garlic, onions, roasted them in the oven, and when they were cool, I blitzed them in the big processor, and then I've jarred them and sealed them, water bathed them to seal them, and we'll have those, as I said before, we'll have those during the year. That's how we use our tomatoes. We're not big tomato eaters as tomatoes. I tend not to bottle them whole either, because I found we just didn't use them like that. We used a lot of tomatoes in sauces and things. So the last thing is we've got a fig tree and we've had masses of figs, and this year we've been eating them for our lunch on biscuits with cheese. And then I've just got some left that I'm doing. Trev's picking them every 2 or 3 days, and I'm doing them 4 in a jar in a light syrup, which is half sugar to half water. I don't poach the figs at all in the syrup. I just make the syrup, put the figs in the jar, pour over the syrup, and then add some booze to it, whatever you prefer. You can use amaretto, you can use brandy or port or anything like that. And that would just make, that's enough for 2 figs each. And I'll probably put them on top of sort of a rice pudding or something in the winter. I'll make a rice pudding and then we'll have the figs with it as well. So that's what I've been doing this week. And it feels good to be sort of using everything up. Right. It's typical, isn't it? These last bits of alcohol are just not cooking down at all. It's always the same. But actually, if you give them a bit of a bash, sometimes they'll collapse. So I'm going to put my sugar in now, so we can stir that in and see how it is. Changes things radically. And it goes. And you stir that in. And then we assess whether we need any more vinegar. I don't think we're going to. these apples? 4. There's always one, you know, that everything else is all pulpy and it just doesn't cook down at all. I don't know why, when they're all up at the same tree. But anyway, you get the gist. I don't think that's going to need any more vinegar. It's all nice and loose. If I can get those apples cooked down a bit more, it will become the sort of consistency that we need. Now, I don't like my chutneys too sort of solid. There is they say in books to use the spoon and draw it across, and if it stays fairly separate, then that's the ideal. I find by the time it's stood and reabsorbed some of the liquid into it, then it's almost too stiff, if you see what I mean. So I've got some here that I made back earlier in the summer, I think. And we'll have a look at that consistency, because I think I'm going to have to cook this down a bit more and we won't be jarring it immediately. So this is how it ends up. This is how I like it to be. You can see the raisins there. You need a little bit of liquid in it, and then the pulpy fruit, and that's what you're aiming for. So when I don't know how the people that are cooking, how it's ending up, whether you're going to need to cook it for longer, because I'm going to cook mine for a little bit longer. So how's yours, Rachel? Is it does it look ready, or do you think it needs a bit longer? Yeah, I think you know, mine does, because it's needs to cook down a bit more. So I'm going to sort of leave it gently cooking. You've seen me jar up things before. Make sure it's full right to the top. You need to make sure it hasn't got air bubbles around the sides. If there are any, just use the point of your knife or a dinner knife or something to make sure those air pockets are gone. You need to fill it right up to the top and then put the lid on straight away. Just the same as we've done with jams and other things. Going back to our apple peel, I've said before, in the way that you do the pectin, you can do exactly the same. Cook the apple peel with cold water and make jellies with it. You don't need to cook it on down and thicken it. Just cover it with water, cook it, drip it overnight, measure it, and then you can add the same amount of sugar as you've got liquid, and then you can make herb jellies, different sorts of fruit jellies. But at this time of year, I think it's nice to put some chopped root ginger when you cook the peel, the apple peel and the cores. Put some root ginger in with it. Once you've strained all that out, you can then go on and make the jelly by adding the sugar, and probably juice of a lemon wouldn't go amiss. Cook it till it's sort of at setting point, and then use some of the preserved stem ginger, chop it finely and put about a teaspoonful in each jar, and then pour the hot jelly onto it. And the ginger will go through the jelly. If you're lucky, it will rise up into the jelly, and it will make it taste beautifully gingery, and you'll have some chunks of ginger at the bottom when you have it on your crumpets or your toast or something. So it's just another use for the apple peel and cores. I think the autumn is a great time because you get all this abundance, and whilst it's tiring, it actually means that you can really stock up the store cupboards. I've got these last bits on the table here. If you're drying apple rings, and you don't need to peel them for this, because actually you're not going to eat them, so it doesn't matter. I make these for Christmas. When I make hampers and things, I don't like all the plasticky bows and things that you get, so I make the sugar, how is the pectin preserved? Just by being bottled hot, Brenda, and sealing immediately. If you want to water bath it, you can, but I haven't done that. Then this is probably at least 2 or 3 years old, and it's still fine because I opened it earlier and sniffed it. If I'd opened it and it all exploded, you know, and fermented, then I would be worried, but it didn't. So I dry the apple rings, and then I get a bit of baker's twine and layer it up with cinnamon sticks and the apple rings, and then tie it off at the bottom. And you can do oranges as well if you want to. And I think in the hampers they look rather nice, and people can then put them on their trees as well, and they smell nice. So I don't like all the sort of tinsely, and I especially don't like glitter. I'm not doing it from a sort of save the planet viewpoint. I just hate clearing it up. And at work, if we're packing hampers and there's glitteries, it gets everywhere, and you just never get to the end of picking it up. So, and I think it's quite nice. It sets off the homemade aspect of the preserves quite nicely. So do a few extra, and as I say, you don't need to peel them, so you can just go mad if you've got plenty of apples and do some of those. So it's rather nice. So quite a lot to be thinking about there, I think. You'll come across things in magazines and books that are other ideas as well, I'm sure, just as I do. But there's quite a lot there to sort of unpick and have a go at, just from the humble apple. Who would have thought? You know, it's just such a staple. And on its own, funnily enough, it's not got a great flavour once it's preserved. You know, if you tried to make just apple jam, it hasn't got a great deal of flavour, so it goes very well with other things, and really it becomes the star, which is great. So next week we'll be tackling the first phase of making the candy peel. So I've got some lovely citrus fruits here. You can use any peel of citrus fruits. I wouldn't use lime though, because it's not very thick and you won't be able to actually do what you need to do. But I've got some lovely lemons. I've got some satsuma clementines or whatever, and some big oranges here. Nice, you want nice sort of thick peel really. And we're going to start making the candy peel, and I'll show you how to do the first phase, and then we'll finish it off. It has to be done over a period of time, so we'll finish it in a later class. But I hope you'll enjoy that. I hope you'll have a good week and try out some of the things, and I'll see you next week. Thank you.